2022 onwards, I have not put in a single paisa in debt. Even when I'm choosing my fund managers, I don't choose it on the basis of recent performance or वो क्या है सॉर्टिनो बीटा शीटा जो भी होता है वो मैं कुछ नहीं देखता.
Your mutual fund portfolio has a lot of funds.
A horrible scenario for me to have 75 funds. I pray to God that no one goes through this particular.
Today's guest is Shankar Nath. In this conversation, we go beyond the usual investing advice. We discuss how he actually allocates his own portfolio, why he sometimes pauses investing despite being a long term investor, how he chooses fund managers, and the lessons he has learned over more than a decade of investing. Shankar, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Pankaj.
If I gave you 1 crore today to invest, how would you deploy it and why?
अच्छा, ये तो आपने हॉट सीट पे डाल दिया. चलो थैंक यू सो मच फॉर गिविंग मी अ करोर. दैट्स एनीवे वेरी डिसेंट सम. Uh, I guess principally the way I would deploy it is using what I call as a top-down approach, which starts obviously with deciding on the basis of my age what should be my asset allocation and what I find most comfortable with. So, in my case, I would probably do a mix of equities and debt and gold and real estate. I mean, that's how I would generally look at it. अब 1 crore में real estate तो कुछ आता नहीं है. So, probably what I would end up doing is put in about 60% in equity, about 20% in debt, and 20% in gold. That's how I'd actually start off with it.
So, where in equities?
In equities, again, the way I work is that I have something called a core and a satellite. So, core is generally what is mutual funds basically. And my comfort is to have about 75 to 80% of my money in mutual funds, while the rest of it will go into direct stocks and equities, which I do. तो मेरा एक्चुअल जो मतलब पोर्टफोलियो है अभी, वो भी थोड़ा बहुत इसी तरह डिवाइडेड है. Although the gold portion is a bit lower than what I ideally want it to be. But in terms of equity, it is currently at about 60%. Debt, bonds, provident fund, real estate, sub milake, it's about 35%, and 5% is in gold.
So, do you want to increase gold?
I ideally want to increase gold because over time, what I've really seen, and just say, your the name of your channel is Hustle Free Wealth, right? So for me also, I also prefer hustle free and hassle free. And what I've discovered is that using a multi asset kind of an approach is always better. I have not seen too much of a difference between putting all your money in equity versus having a more balanced approach of putting, let's say, 60% in equity, 20 in debt, 20 in other assets. I generally prefer that. Investing should not be stressful. That's what I always say. Investing should be profitable, and to have a multi asset approach definitely works for me.
The question on that is, will you be deploying money differently compared to how you would have done 3, 4 years ago?
Yes, very much actually. So, investing is a very evolutionary process. So, when I first started, I had some different thoughts about how investing should be. So, when I really started, it was actually a little late in my life. So, I'm like a late bloomer when it comes to wealth creation. I started only at the age of 35. अब क्या करें सर उस टाइम पे हमारे पास यूट्यूब नहीं होता था और इन्फ्लुएंसर ज्ञानी लोग मेरे जैसे नहीं होते थे. तो व्हाटएवर वी लर्न्ड वी लर्न्ड राइट. So I started a bit late at only at the age of 35. And when I started, obviously I was a little afraid of equities. So more of my wealth was actually there in debt instruments and safe instruments, as I call it. So real estate, debt, uh, provident fund, etc. That's where a lot of my wealth was. And then as confidence increased, I started to increase my equity. So to why I'm exactly saying this is because from 2022 onwards, I have not put in a single paisa in debt. Because mentally मैंने क्या किया, I defined a safety number for myself, saying that if I have so many crores, which in my case was 5 crores, which is that if I have safe assets worth 5 crores, which is a combination of my provident fund, debt mutual funds, and the real estate, I felt 5 crores is enough as safety. So, which means every additional rupee that I'm earning, it is actually going into equity at the moment. So it's been about 4 years. Not a single paisa has gone into real estate or pro- provident fund. थोड़ा डालना पड़ता है because my father would come on the 2nd of April and say कि चल चेक दे मुझे 1.5 लाख रुपए का, तो उसमें चला जाता है. But I've not been a salaried person since 2022, so EPF तो नहीं जाता, थोड़ा सा PPF चला जाता है. And no debt, no real estate, nothing. Every penny has gone into equity since then. So this is the massive change which has happened in my life, going from a very safe and a very conservative profile to a more balanced profile, and that's ideally what is most comfortable.
But then the reason for that could be not because earlier you didn't have a lot of money
Correct.
compared to what you have now.
That's
So
correct.
probably you can take more risks. Is that the reason?
Yeah, it is. It is. And the fact that, I have a safety cushion with me. So once that safety cushion has been created, then I felt that, ठीक है, now, the next goal of the capital that I have should be to basically go past inflation. And that's why I started to put everything else in equity, irrespective of how the markets are doing.
So you said irrespective of how the markets behave. Does it mean that valuations of the market do not play a role when it comes to you investing in equities?
Okay, so let me answer it let me break this part down into three parts. Okay. So, first is you have money that you put into mutual funds, which is basically kind of an asset class where you are not really taking the decisions. It is the fund manager who's taking the decision on your behalf, right? So, that's one class of money. The second class of money is where you take the decisions, which is when I invest in direct stocks. So I have my own methodology on how I want to do it. So I do that. So I'm very careful. So I'm not someone who's going to put money at 50 ka P ratio, 60 ka P ratio at whatever valuation. Like I'll give you a current example. I was extremely aggressive in the months of February, March, and April. I would have done like I would have bought enough stocks and जो जो कचरा था वो सब बाहर हटाया, अच्छा stocks डाला and all that stuff. We are right now in June, right? In June, I have done only 4 trades. That's it. वो भी मुझे थोड़ा बेचना-बूचना था, तो मैंने वो किया था because I had made some mistakes somewhere. Otherwise, I was absolutely inactive in the stock market. So I'm very careful of what I do. And the third grouping is where I keep money aside to be deployed in the market, but I keep it in cash, which is generally kept either in a arbitrage fund or an equity saving fund or some other place, so that when the opportunity comes in, I kind of deploy it. So this is again a change which has happened over time. That earlier I used to be 100% in the market, but now depending on the valuation, I decide how much of money I should kind of deploy in the market and how much should I keep in a site in a kind of a parking spot, which for me is an arbitrage fund or an equity savings fund. So valuation is important.
So if valuation is important, you said the first part, uh, you give it
The
to the
mutual
fund
fund part.
manager regardless.
Correct.
Yeah, the first part in the mutual fund part, you
Correct.
give it to the fund manager regardless of the valuation of the market.
That's correct.
Right now, it is, I would say, fairly valued. But let's say markets are extremely overvalued. Even if I give money to the fund manager would not have enough valued stocks, right,
Correct.
to buy. So they'll
Correct.
end up buying overvalued stocks. And when
That's
we push money through SIPs,
that's correct.
essentially we are obligating them to pick stocks which probably are overvalued. So how do you
Correct.
see that?
So that's where I generally prefer fund managers who are more flexible in their approach. So, for example, the Parag Parekh FlexiCap team is one of those teams which does keep a decent amount of money in cash, if they see that the valuations aren't good. And that's where actually a large part of my portfolio is, when it comes to mutual funds. So it's because the fund manager's way of working resonates with my own style of investing. So that's why even when I'm choosing my fund managers, I don't choose it on the basis of recent performance or वो क्या है सॉर्टिनो बीटा शीटा जो जो भी होता है वो मैं कुछ नहीं देखता. For me, the primary logic is I'm actually a passenger in a bus. And who's driving the bus? The fund manager is driving the bus. So I need to know who this fund manager is. And in my case, I have more comfort in working with the established fund managers, people who have actually done it, who have gone through different cycles. So that would be, the Parag Parikh FlexiCap team with Rajiv Thakkar, all the other guys there, and Mr. Sailesh Rajbhan of Nippon, who's also been there for 25 plus years. ये लोग मेरे को ज़्यादा comfort देते हैं, and I ride along. Although I know, Mr. Bhan would doesn't deploy as much in cash. He kind of puts money into equity most of the time. But the kind of style he follows, which is the contrarian GARP kind of a strategy, it gives me the comfort कि नहीं, ये थोड़ा ध्यान से, there would not be too much of harakiri there. And we all know about how Parag Parikh anyway works.
Loved the answer. And I kind of view my investing the same way. And I have to, first of all, know the fund manager, whether their investing style matches mine or not. So I have to see all of those things. I don't go by returns. But on that, there is a risk, and that is key man risk. So,
Hmm.
since you mentioned Rajiv Thakkar, love this gentleman, but I have an issue. What if he leaves Parag Parikh? And then the next fund manager who comes in, would that person follow the same strategy? That is one. Second, many people also talk about the succession plan and the research team, etc.
Yeah,
But we as retail investors, we do not have exposure to them. We only
correct.
know about the fund manager. You have a bulk of investment in Parag Parikh. Similarly, there are many other people, including me. The issue is what happens if he tomorrow leaves, starts a new fund, just like Prashant Jain did, and considering that bulk of our investment is with this fund, how would you plan it? Would you move it to other people? Would you wait for
Yeah,
three,
it's a,
four
it's a
years?
it's a it's a tough question, and I can understand, what people would go through, if that happens. Just to give you a very recent example, Mr. Niket Shah, he moved away from Motilal Oswal mid cap, and he's gone into some other Motilal Oswal का ही कोई group company है, उधर चले गए हैं. So this is the man who, kind of has all the laurels of what Motilal Oswal mid cap fund had done over the last 2 3 years. But now he's no longer there. So what do? You know, you gave that very nice example of Prashant Jain, right? So Prashant Jain चले गए, फिर रोशी जैन आ गई, अब रोशी जैन भी चली गई हैं, अभी मिस्टर गनात्रा आ गए हैं. So everyone is different. I don't expect Roshi Jain to have the same ethos that Prashant Jain used to have. In fact, जब Prashant Jain होते थे वहाँ पे, I remember in 2018 and 2019, people used to just shout at him, because his value fund strategy was not doing well. His value investing strategy was not doing well at that time, and he was completely loaded with PSU stocks and banking stocks and SBI and all that stuff. Then the strategy worked later. जब COVID आया 2020, 2021, it worked. And then when he left, Roshi Jain actually moved a little away from that value investing strategy. She started looking more at growth strategies and all that stuff. So वो movement हुआ. अभी मिस्टर गनात्रा वो थोड़ा और भी अलग तरीके से करते हैं. मतलब I haven't really looked at how he does it exactly, but I'm pretty sure he does it in a slightly different style. So one has to look at how what is the predominant style, the strategy of the fund manager. And just to answer your question, if Mr. Rajiv Thakkar were to leave Parag Parikh EMC, then I think the first thing I will do is I'll stop my SIPs, because now I need time to understand who's this new guy who's going to come in. Is it going to be the same set of people who were doing there, which I think is Mr. Raj Mehta or Mr. Omkar, who along with Rajiv Thakkar have been there for many years, I think, in that particular fund. So if they have also left, then SIPs to मैं बंद करूँगा, and then I will take a call maybe after one more year as to what to do with those units which I have accumulated over.
So, do you think this is where index funds have an edge over active funds?
No, I don't think so, because I don't get into this debate of active versus passive at all. There are a few reasons for this. Number one is that uh, this thing on valuations that we talked about. Now, one of the underlying things, and I'm sure you would have also read about it, is that the reason why index funds are doing well in the US and that becomes a predominant strategy is because everyone is putting in money inside index funds. And the more money that goes into index funds, the more the valuation thing, it's never the right valuation because it's always kind of inching up because more money is chasing the same asset. So if a lot of money chases the same asset, then कुछ नहीं होगा, वो asset का price बढ़ेगा. It'll go away from the underlying fundamentals of that particular asset. So that's where I think that one should not be just looking at index funds all the time, because the more the index fund moves, there's a better pricing advantage that comes in actively managed funds at that particular time. So that's what I try and do. I keep a mix of active and passive funds with me. For instance, uh, if I remember right, for large cap funds, more of it is into passive index funds. And as I go down the ladder, so for mid caps and especially for small caps, I definitely look at more of active funds. There are multiple reasons for this because with large caps, you have only 100 stocks. But as you go into mid caps, as you go into small caps, the universe widens definitely. There's a lot more mispricing also that's there. So I trust the fund manager to do a better job than definitely those passive funds which are there. The second is that, a lot of people get corrupted by this PIVA report. आपने भी देखा होगा वो स्पीवा रिपोर्ट। वो स्पीवा रिपोर्ट का एक ही काम है लाइफ में, ये बोलना कि पैसिव इज़ ग्रेट एंड एक्टिव इज़ बैड। आई थिंक देयर इज़ नो अदर जॉब फॉर दैट स्पीवा रिपोर्ट एक्चुअली। But if you really read inside it, you will find a lot of interesting things. So for example, SPIVA report compares the active fund performance after fees, which is the NAV. It doesn't compare it with the index fund. It compares it with the benchmark. अब मैं benchmark का क्या करूँगा? I can't buy the benchmark na. I can only buy the index fund or the ETF. So he's already creating a 0.3, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4% advantage for himself, which is a big advantage. मतलब he's already taking a head start in the race. Other problem is that ये जो comparison होता है, the large cap fund, he is comparing it with, I think, a large and mid cap fund. At least that's how much I remember. So this is the second problem with this PIVA report. So, I would always advise people, all the data you want is available with you. So just spend maybe an hour and try and see for yourself what is exactly happening. So when I saw it, I noticed that Indian small cap funds had about 75% of Indian actively managed small cap funds had done better than the Nifty small cap 250 index fund. So 3 out of 4 funds had done better. So this is all data which is so visible to us, and where I think it really doesn't make sense. But yes, having said this, there are certain places where I do use the index fund. So, for example, when I want to invest outside of India, in US investing, etc., I go for S&P 500 index funds or Nasdaq 100 index funds. I do that. If I want to invest in momentum funds, I settle for an index variant, a passive index variant, rather than going in for active funds, जो अभी बहुत कम है. So I keep that distinction between what I want under active and what I want under passive.
Okay. So you talked about S&P and Nasdaq 100. How do you invest? What is the most economical way to invest in international funds?
So for now, I've been investing only via mutual funds and ETFs. Uh, वो भी करे हुए काफी time हो गया actually, because the problem is that today there is so much of demand for these US based ETFs. It becomes a game of demand and supply. So
Yeah.
if the supply is limited and if there is too much of demand, then that NAV that you see right now, that keeps on inching up. And today, if I'm not wrong, it is at a 15% premium to the underlying uh, shares of that particular index. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Pankajji, because this is something which I have read and I truly believe that as a ho raha hi hoga, which means you're already going to start at the back foot when it comes to buying ETFs. So that is, I think, one problem. which is where the solution for something like this is basically to open an account, from where you can invest in US stocks and US ETFs. I think there are enough platforms who actually allow it. So there are independent platforms like IND Money, Vested Finance, Ticker Tape, ऐसे 4-5 और है. And then there are also brokerages which are allowing it. So ICICI Securities, HDFC Securities, Samco. So these are some of the brokerages who are doing it. And I think now, even very recently, just last week, Grow and Zero Daha and other guys, I think they've also got an approval for doing it. So I think that is one place through which you can do. So there is something called an LRS, which is the Liberalized Remittance Scheme. It allows a resident Indian to send 250,000 US dollars. So that's more than 2 crores, I believe. So that can be sent across in a single year. So you can send it across to these accounts which have been created. Some of them work directly with US brokers, some of them work via Gift City, and वहाँ से आप invest कर सकते हो. So basically your rupees get
But then,
converted to dollars.
there are a lot of charges, right? There is
हाँ, हाँ,
currency
हाँ.
conversion charge,
Yes, yes.
then the taxation hassle.
Correct.
Okay, so you still feel that if ETFs are priced properly, then ETF is the way to.
Yes, if ETFs are priced properly, then ETFs is a very good way of doing it. Correct.
And what about valuation of US? So when people talk about international, they are primarily talking about US investing, right? So even if you pick a global fund, 65% is US.
Correct.
So what about the valuation right now?
Yeah. So, if you go for a market cap linked fund, then obviously the valuations currently is extremely high. Um,
Yeah.
that's there. But the beauty about, let's say, a US based, uh, you know, anything that you look at from an investing scheme perspective, you have tremendous amount of options. So within ETFs itself, you've got thousands of ETFs which is available for you. So you don't have to buy the market cap linked S&P 500 or any kind of exotic ETF there. You can even buy value ETFs there. And there'll be like hundreds of types of value ETF also. So there's large cap value ETF, there is mid cap value ETF, small cap. आपको जो चाहिए आपको मिल जाएगा वहाँ पे. So if you're not comfortable with valuations uh, for the regular fund which is there, your market cap linked funds, you have multiple options which are available. The second thing that's there is you can now choose a lot of the China specific ETFs, Korea specific ETFs. हालांकि कोरिया ताइवान तो एकदम मतलब पिछले 2-3 महीने में बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ गया है। बट आई एम
मुझे
नॉट
भी
श्योर
कल
अगर
शायद कल ही क्रैश भी करा
हाँ,
बाय
वो बिकॉज़
8%
वो
क्रैश कॉस्ट
कैपिटल गेन वहाँ पे किसी ने बोल दिया कैपिटल गेन को क्या अनरियलाइज्ड कैपिटल गेन के ऊपर हम टैक्स लगाएँगे। सो ऑब्वियसली इट्स गोइंग टू फॉल राइट? अ, ये साउथ कोरिया में हुआ था। Uh, yeah, but I'm sure there are other markets like probably Turkey or Brazil, etc., which are a lot cheaper, and you can take exposure there. So those possibilities are definitely there. See, the idea behind opening up is to give you more options. अब इंडिया भी तो बहुत एक्सपेंसिव था और अभी तो उतना नहीं है बट एक टाइम तो बहुत ही अजीब था नाउ हैविंग ऑप्शंस इज अ गुड थिंग एट दैट टाइम आल्सो ना वरना हम कहाँ पैसा उसी में डालते रहेंगे सो आई थिंक दैट्स व्हाट इंटरनेशनल इन्वेस्टिंग ऑफर्स यू सो पर्सनली इफ आई लुक एट माय ओन पोर्टफोलियो of uh, out of the money that I have in equity, which I told you is about 55-60% के आसपास of my overall portfolio, about 8 to 9% is in international at the moment. And I want to increase that split to 25-75 over the next 2-3 years. So that's what my goal is.
if you had to build a portfolio from scratch today,
Hmm.
What would your asset allocation look like?
This is assuming I have what? I have nothing or I have something?
No, you'll always have something, right? Because
Ah,
if you're working, you will have some compulsory debt products, right?
yeah,
EPF, ETF.
correct.
Anyway, when you'll be investing, you will factor those in and decide your own asset allocation. So,
Correct.
what should be the ideal asset allocation? Let's say you're a 30-year-old.
Right. Uh, assuming I have some of those provident funds or let's say some real estate, which I might have bought, or let's say I got from an inheritance, etc. Uh, Irrespective of that, I think for me, accumulating money will happen in a very systematic basis. I would not kind of put all my money into equity in a single go. Even now, I don't do that, and I've never done it that way. Uh, I had one piece of real estate which we had sold about 2 years back, and the money that came in, I did not put it into uh, equity directly. Although my safety asset thing was already done, so ideally I should put all that money into equity, but I said no, I won't do that. So I put that money in either conservative hybrid or equity savings or arbitrage funds, and then I did an STP. So that's how I always operate. That uh, I would set up this process. So to answer your question, maybe immediately I would still be extremely debt heavy, with what I have. But over time, because I'm a salaried person, as you said, a 30-year-old salaried person, I'm getting savings money. I'm getting money, I'm getting income, I have expenses. So, जो भी savings होता है, I would use a systematic investment plan to kind of put it into equity assets. And hopefully, over the next 5 years, I would try and reach a 40-60 or a 50-50 kind of a scenario. That would be my asset allocation goal.
50-50 in debt and equity.
Between debt and real estate versus equity, so 50-50. Won't happen immediately, but over the next 5 years, by the age of 35, 35 maximum 40, I would definitely want to be at a 50.
But why 50-50? Why not 60-40? Why not 70-30?
I think it's a matter of comfort. And uh, over by 40, I would try to be at 50-50. But over time, I think what is eventually going to happen is that I will end up with a 70-30 or a 75-25, wherein 75 of my money is actually in equity and only 25 is in debt, because of two things. One is that safety cushion thing which I explained earlier, and the second thing is that the pace of growth on equity would be faster than the pace of growth on debt. So at 40, if I'm at 50-50, then I think by the time I'm 50 years old, I'll probably be at a 70-30. And by the time I'm 80, I think वो 80-20 भी पहुंच जाएगा. So I'm not someone who believes in that 1 minus age wala rule, or sorry, 100 minus age wala rule, wherein, they say कि
Yeah.
तुम 80 साल के हो गए तो 80% डेट में होगा, 20% इक्विटी में होगा. I don't think one should optimize for that, because then matching inflation will become extremely difficult for that person if he kind of assumes. So I think a thumb rule is a good starting point, but I think beyond 2-3 years of doing investing, you should not really be keeping that thumb rule to heart. You should actually advance to better ways of modeling your money.
So one of the issues that I've seen with investors is when markets are doing well, let's say they start with 50-50.
Hmm.
Okay, this is what my target allocation is going to be.
You're right.
So whenever it goes to 60, I'm going to sell it and I'm going to scale it back
Yeah.
to 50.
Okay.
But what they do is when the markets start doing well, then at that time they keep increasing. They don't sell it
Huh.
because then that fear of
Yeah.
missing out comes in,
Correct.
right? Do you think that there is enough education about it?
No, absolutely not. It's not there, and I don't think there would. I think education will help too much also, because these are emotional decisions for most of the people. For 95% of the people, it's an emotional decision. Uh, मतलब पड़ोसी बोलेगा ना, यार क्या कर रहा है, अभी तो लोग मार्केट में डाल रहे हैं, तुम क्यों निकाल रहे हो ऐसे करके, सो इट्स दैट सेम कॉन्सेप्ट दैट कम्स इन हियर आल्सो. बट I think over time, once you've gone through a couple of crashes, it's when your mind will start teaching you this. Still, there will be temptation. Can't help it. Like, if I look at my stock portfolio at the moment, I know there are 3-4 stocks. Joe, it's like extremely overvalued at the moment. Okay, there's been a nice run up, so thank you so much for that. But it's right now extremely overvalued. But I'm not able to bring my हार्ट टू से कि चल यार अब निकाल देते हैं इसको, या थोड़ा ट्रिम डाउन कर लेते हैं. it's a very difficult decision. Uh, so what I generally do is, instead of redeeming anything or selling off anything, I do a slightly positioning wherein I say, if the market is expensive, let me not add more fuel to the fire. So that's what I do. So I'll give you a simple example. Uh, let's take the small cap index present moment. Now, small caps have done well in the last 2 3 months, right? From April 1st onwards, I think they've gone up by, if I'm not wrong, more than 20%, 20 25% के
Mhm.
आसपास. There's been a good jump up. Now, if you see from a valuation perspective, and I think, Indian markets are now mature enough कि हम लोग small cap का भी valuation सब देख सकते हैं. It's right now,
Mm.
and by the way, small cap companies have done extremely well. The results have been very good in Q4 of last financial year, in FY26. In spite of that, the run up which we saw, the current P ratio of the Nifty small cap 250 index is right now 35 point something. Now, your forward P for the same Nifty small cap 250 historically has been 25. So, if you do simple mathematics, you will know that what the market is saying is that अगले एक साल में the earnings, the EPS of the Nifty small cap 250 companies, the constituent companies, will actually increase by 42%, which I can bet नहीं होने वाला. 42% increase in the EPS is too much. So, in my head, the small cap index right now is a tad expensive. आपने fairly valued बोला, but I think it's a little overvalued at the moment. At least the small.
When I said fairly valued, वो पूरा इंडेक्स बोला.
हाँ, पूरा इंडेक्स आई कैन स्टिल एग्री कि फेयरली वैल्यूड है, बट स्मॉल कैप उसमें से मुझे लग रहा है कि ओवर वैल्यूड है. व्हाई आई एम रेफरिंग टू स्मॉल कैप्स इज बिकॉज़ ऑल माय stocks are mostly small caps and micro caps. So the logic which I use here is that म्यूचुअल फंड मैनेजर तो वैसे ही लार्ज कैप खरीदता रहता है, मिड कैप खरीदता रहता है. तो लेट माय स्टॉक इन्वेस्टिंग बी ऑन स्मॉल कैप्स एंड माइक्रो कैप्स, because that's not what the fund manager is generally doing, right? So that's the distinction I use for the two. And the second reason is that it's very easy for me to understand the business of a small cap. अगर आप मुझे बोलेंगे कि रिलायंस कौन से बिजनेस में है, मैं तो मतलब आई विल नॉट इवन हैव अ स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट टू explain you that, right? So that's why I kind of stick to small caps for my equity. So I'm just giving you that example to say that, you know, my immediate move ये है कि अब मैं स्मॉल कैप के अंदर कोई पैसा नहीं डालूँगा जब तक ये ठीक नहीं हो जाता. Uh, I so absolutely no stocks I will buy of small cap, micro cap unless there is some really good scenario. Uh, my lump sum I will not put anything in small cap funds at all till this thing gets solved out. And अगर बहुत ही मतलब और भी ओवर वैल्यू हो गया, तो then I'll probably even pause my SIPs for 2 3 months till the thing gets resolved to a bit. So this is a little bit of maturity that I have gained over time to say that just keep on SIPing नहीं करना, अपने को थोड़ा अपना कॉमन सेंस भी इस्तेमाल करना है, so that you can kind of be very uh, मतलब knowingly I don't want to make mistakes. I think that's probably the better way of looking at it.
I don't like SIPs, I'll be honest, and I've been very vocal about it. This narrative has been pushed so hard that people fail to understand why SIP is not good. SIP is good at certain times, right? Maybe when the market is fairly valued or undervalued,
Yeah.
right? Or you should invest heavily at that time.
No, but
But
just to share, I don't want any of your viewers to get the wrong impression. So just to share how my SIPs have done, uh, I think they've done fairly good. Okay, so if I look at it, I've been doing SIPs now for 10 plus years. And
Mhm.
on a XIRR basis, it's currently at about 16.3, 16.4%. Individually, when I think, in fact, you'll be surprised, Parag Parik, जो बहुत टाइम तक 19% देता था, now it has come down to 15% for me. Uh, you know, with whatever has happened over the last 1 2 years, with them holding on to cash, and the market's also not doing well. But generally, on an average, every other SIP has done more than 17%, and the average is around 16.3%. So over a long term,
when did you start?
2015 I started. So I think it's gone through enough cycles from 2015 onwards. Yeah, it's 16.3, 16.4% is how much I have managed overall.
Okay. I've also heard that your own portfolio has exposure to quite a few mutual funds. If I remember correctly, I heard this a while back. Is that correct?
Sorry, which again? Which fund?
Your mutual fund portfolio has a lot of funds.
Yeah,
There are a lot
yeah,
of
too many
funds
funds. Yeah, yeah,
in it.
absolutely correct.
Yeah. So if I remember correctly, you said something about 30 or 40, something
No, no,
like
no,
that.
no. All put together, equity, debt, hybrid, everything put together, it's 75 funds. Uh,
75.
75. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
Okay.
How did your portfolio evolve over the years?
yeah.
And what's the thinking behind owning multiple funds? Do you feel it is okay for you, or do
No,
you
no,
feel that it needs to be adjusted?
it's a horrible scenario for me to have 75 funds. I pray to God that no one goes through this particular thing that I'm going through. But I'll give you a sequence of how this happened actually. 2015 is also when I joined ET Money. You know, ET Money is into this entire mutual fund thing only as an RIA, and वहाँ पे हम लोग तो देखते रहते थे, मतलब एवरी डे वी यूज्ड टू लुक एट फंड्स हाउ दे आर परफॉर्मिंग एंड एवरीथिंग, तो लगा कि हाँ, लेट्स बाय दिस एंड देन बीच-बीच में वी हैड दीज़ आवर आईटी गाइज़, सो टेस्टिंग के लिए वो लोग आते थे, तो वो लोग बोलते हैं, "शंकर, ये थोड़ा ₹5000 का ये वाला खरीद लो, मुझे टेस्ट करना है इसको हमारे ऐप के ऊपर।" तो मैं खरीद लेता था। सो ऐसे कर के इट जस्ट इंक्रीज़ टू अ मैसिव लेवल। But here's something, before people start typing it in the comments, I should tell them that out of the 75 funds which I have currently, the active funds, 70 of them I would have bought prior to 2022. So in the last 4 or 5 years, I have basically bought only three, four, five funds maximum. Nothing more than that.
New funds?
New funds, correct. वो भी because of I had to do some of those arbitrage funds and equity savings funds for the STP purpose. That's why I bought those new funds. Otherwise, ये सब पुराने पाप है. Of the first 5, 6, 7 years of my mutual fund journey. So all these are from there. But the thing is, uh, Kaji, that I'm a little lucky that I'm able to manage it. Optically it doesn't look nice. कि अगर कोई बोलेगा कि मेरे पास 75 funds है, it doesn't look nice at all. But in my head, there are only about 7, 8 funds which I really look at, where मेरा SIP चल रहा है, where a massive bulk of my my corpus is. It's not it's not spread across equally across all the funds. Also, the debt funds which I have, all of them are prior to 2022. So I have advantages of indexation on those particular funds, all that stuff. So if I were to sell any of them off, and especially the older funds, तो मेरा capital gain बहुत ज़्यादा हो जाएगा. I'll have to pay a massive tax on capital gain. अब मैं इतना cash flow अपना निकालना नहीं चाहता हूँ. So I'm in a soup right now. So I would never suggest anyone to have so many funds. But yeah, I can't help it. But let my
No,
situation not be your situation.
no, the situation that you are in, there'll be many people who would have the same situation, not probably 75 funds, but they'll have probably 30, 50,
I
25.
was talking
And
to someone the other day. They had some person had 600 stocks in his portfolio. He was like, "Arey Shankar ji, if you don't mind, can I send it to you?" No, no, please don't send it to me ever. मैं कहाँ 600 फंड 600 स्टॉक्स आपके देखने वाला हूँ. So yeah, it was funny. Sorry, you were saying something.
see, since you have 75 funds, there'll be other people also who would have 40 funds, 35 funds. So, what's the best way to reduce the number of funds
Yeah,
in case they want to go to 6, 7 funds?
yeah. So I'm sure out of this, the number of funds that excess number of funds that a person has, उसमें से there will be a few funds where you're not comfortable. So I'll give you my own example. So 3, 4 months back, I had I think 83 funds or something like that. So I actually knocked off about 7, 8 funds, in the last 3, 4 months. One of the AMCs where I had grown a little uncomfortable over time is Axis AMC. And the reason was that, so by the way, Axis was like the cream of the crop in this 2018 2019 kind of a period where growth funds were doing
Everyone was
really
talking about
well.
access
Correct.
funds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after that, the problem started. All kinds of problems happened from a compliance perspective also, plus CIOs leaving, and I think दो तीन CIO जा चुके हैं. So there is no kind of continuity. There's no comfort level for me as an investor. मैं हर बार खोल के देखता हूँ तो एक नया CIO होता है, so that's obviously not a good thing. So I thought, okay, I think it's time to kind of bite the bitter pill और इसको निकालते हैं ऐसे करके. So I think this can be your first criteria. कि what are the various kind of AMC or schemes you are absolutely not comfortable with. सबसे पहले आप उसको निकाल दो. Then comes your question on the uh, how many funds do you have per category. So if you have, for example, 4 different flexi cap funds, 5 different flexi cap funds, so within a category, if you have too many schemes, then you can definitely pull it out. And I think the third category is, and which I know is absolutely the toughest, is where you start looking at the fund managers which are there. So I'll give you another criteria which I use. If a fund manager is, if a company changes their fund manager and that fund manager's experience is, let's say, only 2 years, 3 years, I prefer to move that person out, that scheme out. क्योंकि इस बंदे ने तो यार साइकिल देखा ही नहीं है, मतलब उसके पास उतना एक्सपीरियंस ही नहीं है खेलने का. So this becomes like a negative criteria for me and I push them off. They might be talented, but I don't have proof of their talent yet. So I will push them off. So once you do this exercise, you will see that within at least equities, you can bring it down from, if you have, let's say, 20 schemes, you should be able to bring it down to about 7, 8 schemes, maximum 10 schemes. तो आपका आधा तो वहीं पे साफ हो जाएगा. So at least that's the approach which I'm continually using. And yeah, I think you won't lose much in the process of doing that.
बट वो फिर वही क्वेश्चन आएगा ना अबाउट टैक्सेशन।
सर वो होगा,
The,
वही मैंने
that is
बोला
a
ना.
behavioral thing.
हाँ, वो बिटर पिल होता ही है. अब अगेन व्हाट आई डिड, व्हाई डिड आई यूज़ द February March पीरियड फॉर पुशिंग दिस आउट इज़ बिकॉज़ आई वाज़ एबल टू डू इट एट अ टाइम जब मेरे पास कुछ लॉसेस भी थे. तो मैं फिर टैक्स हार्वेस्टिंग कर पाया एंड आई वाज़ एबल टू टेक द कैपिटल गेन एंड द कैपिटल लॉस एंड सेट इट ऑफ टुगेदर. सो you'll have to be a little more scientific in your process कि why you're doing, at what time you're doing. 1-2 बार आप ऐसा करोगे ना, मतलब फिर आपका ब्रेन का न्यूरॉन अपने आप बैठ जाएगा कि हाँ, ये टाइम सही है ये सब करने का, ये टाइम मस्करी नहीं करना, वो सब आपको समझ आ जाएगा. बट you'll have to try it once. Living in fear will not take you far. You can make money only if you're an optimist. No, you won't find too many rich pessimists in the world, I can guarantee you that. I don't want to live that same life of getting up in the morning, sitting in the car, going to office, और 4 मीटिंग कर लिए, किसी को कुछ अनाप-शनाप सुना दिया, किसी से सुन लिया मैंने, वापस आ गए, ठीक है? फिर खाए, सोए. I don't want that. So I've seen that there are essentially 4 criteria for creating wealth. One is capital, second is returns as a percentage. This concept of demand and supply has been going on for the last 10,000 years. So why would Mr. Buffett say that नहीं गोल्ड में नहीं है लेकिन बाकी सब में है. आई कांट, नाउ आई कांट एग्री. At 26 I would have agreed, but not at 46.